Any questions? I was silently told there was none, as the 3 newly recruited navigators standing in front of me didn't respond. They were to scout through outer space with the Massive, looking to receive any signs of the ships of 29 Urkin runaways. Nobody had seen or heard from these Urkins in weeks. I would respect their decision to not downgrade their packs, and I would leave them be if I was sure their intentions were not harmful. But with the code that made us as wicked as we were for the past 174 years, Urkins were generally dangerous and unreasonable, and I did not doubt that these rebels would eventually plan something horrible if they hadn't already. The detection technology the Massive had would also be installed in the top floor of my tower after it was through being under construction. I couldn't thank the stars enough that the Vortians were miraculously one of the races that automatically forgave and trusted us, the Urkin scum. Even while we invaded their home planet and imprisoned their people, the mighty Urkin race was still nothing without the immensely talented scientists and engineers that were the Vortians. "Wait, yes!" one navigator suddenly cried out. "Are you coming along, my Empress?" No, I sighed. As much as I like travel, I haven't been in the mood. I should keep things here under supervision anyway, with the new tower nearly done. I glanced over to a group of Urkin trainees chatting with their partnered Vortians. When they noticed me catching them giggling about a funny story, their conversation quickly reverted back to the blueprint they had open on a hologram. Everyone was still skittish, not even close to being fully accustomed to the kind of freedom I gave them. I was about to tell these workers not to worry, when I heard the tower's elevator chime. I turned to it. My tired eyes blinked all the way open in interest. "Zim, what brings you here?" My little soldier saluted me as I greeted him.
"My Empress."
I first assumed his bowed head and shut eyes were to express respect. I realized by the sound of his voice that it was somberness. "Zim?" When I said his name, Zim opened his eyes, meeting the floor first, then me. He stood up straight and forced a light-hearted grin.
"Yes?"
"Tell me what's wrong," I said, being direct but calm.
"Nothing, Syss. Nothing, my Empress."
"Then what brings you here?" Zim idly watched the Urkins and Vortians working outside the window. He scratched his side. He squeezed his eyes shut and bared his teeth, as if pricked somewhere sensitive, such as the heart.
Forget it. It's not important."
He hastily made his way toward the elevator. "Halt!" Zim obeyed my sharp command. He froze, but didn't turn to face me again. I made sure the dominance in my voice did not falter. "Do not take another step, Zim." Zim tensed, head down and shoulders high. "Do you hear me?" I prompted.
"Yes, sir."
Zim answered weakly. My little soldier was troubled, without a doubt. He did not come here for no reason. He did not truly come to only say hello and leave immediately after. I looked to the navigators that were still awaiting further instructions. "You 3, step outside," I said, more urgently than intended. I watched them leave through the elevator before I directed my stare back to Zim. "Turn around." Slowly he did, and I saw his face again. His mouth shut tight, and his eyes squinted in anguish. "Step closer," I said next. Only 3 hesitant steps were taken. "Closer," I said. Zim's hands made fists while he drew nearer. "Closer, Zim." I spoke gently. I opened my arms and knelt down to his level. In defeat, but also a modicum of relief, Zim accepted my invitation and continued stepping forward until his body was leaning against mine, until my arms were around his back, and until his head was drooped over my shoulder. "Come here," I whispered just before we made contact. "Come here, come here, here." I held him in silence for a full minute, After the first dozen seconds, I turned my head slightly to look at the working team through the window. They were watching us curiously. I glared softly and darted my eyes downward as I nodded my head, signaling the group to get out of sight. 2 Urkins and a Vortian understood and guided the others to lower themselves with the hover chairs they used. Zim now had his privacy. It was just me and him. His breathing was soft, but rapid and unsteady. His back and chest shuddered under my embrace. Hey, Zim. Hey. I heard a brief snort from behind my shoulder, followed by a hiccup. I tightened my hold on Zim, and I felt more, if not all of his weight, lean on me. Zim, it's okay. Here. This was powerful for me alone. Zim was evidently overwhelmed. I rubbed him in between the shoulders, just above the back. I am no fool, you know.
I do know.
Zim whimpered. So you also know that I can see your distress.
I do know.
Are you alright?
No, and I'm not sure why.
I'm here for whatever it is, Zim.
I'm still getting used to that. That's part of it. And I just came to cling to you like a little worm baby.
That is not something you should be ashamed of, little soldier.
It is when I'm the reason I feel like this.
You cannot control your emotions.
I can, actually. I stayed proud of myself my whole life despite everything. I pushed myself to do that. Harder as time passed. The tall... Red and purple broke me permanently. Every time I try to revive what I felt before, I get more miserable. And I resort to... pathetic things.
This alarmed me. I turned my head slightly to see the back of Zim's head, brow furrowing gravely. Zim, tell me what you mean by that. The body in my arms began to quiver again. This time it didn't expand. Zim's answer would be painful, and he needed a moment. Take a deep breath, I reminded him. Almost immediately he inhaled through his teeth, and his head shifted.
I yank off my back. Even when I know I'm going to regret it later.
Just what I dreaded. I listened hard.
I'm so confused.
Zim continued.
I can't stop confusing myself. I don't want to die, but I don't want to live either. I'm stuck right in the middle. Is that wrong? I don't know. Could this be my corrupt data path making me like this? Or does it matter?
I was staring at the pack I was touching. The defective pack Zim kept feeling the need to remove. I averted my eyes back to his head, and I incredulously assured, "It matters. Of course it matters."
How do you know?
Because it matters to me, for starters. Zim's antennae rose, one of them flicking me in the face.
Zim matters? To you?
Yes, I earnestly said. I guided him away from me and held him by just his shoulders as I looked him in the eye. Doesn't it show?
Yes, but every time I thought someone respected me, I was only kidding myself. No one's ever said to me straight that they care. Everyone hates Zim. That's all this universe was to me until you started leading. Even Gur wanted me dead once.
What? My eyes rounded. It was enough to witness bubbly, quirky little Gur turn ferocious when he did his part in killing Red and Purple. But to imagine him directing that hostility to Zim was unthinkable. It must have been a misunderstanding. I could not make sense of it. Not after the bonding I saw between them in the past. Zim nodded and told me the story.
I manually locked him too deep into duty mode when I had it up to my squeedly spooch with his childish ways. The result was satisfactory at first, but then it turned ugly. After a few disagreements, he developed an opinion of me so strong and so negative that he tried to obliterate me.
How did you survive?
A squid man blinded him.
A what?
I immediately switched him back to his old silly self, and it looked like he forgot everything. He just started running around in circles, laughing about a sandwich or something. By default, I had it in my head that he didn't mean what he said.
What did he say? Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt.
He called me stupid a lot, a threat to the mission. I was not a commander. I needed to be terminated. I was his enemy. He never liked being my servant. I figured he was simply malfunctioning, saying nonsense. That the tallest left him with me in the condition he was in for some reason I didn't understand. And that's how it was supposed to stay. I was not supposed to tamper with him. But that was before I began to think harder about the things I went through. Sometimes I do wonder if that was the real Gur. I wonder if my own sir hated me just like everyone else.
I shook my head. That wasn't the real Gur. Zim suspiciously furrowed his brow. Knowing why, I added, I'm not lying, I promise. Zim hung his head slightly.
All right.
He had the brains and codes of several other Sir models. It sounds to me like they took full control when you forced them on. That was another Sir that almost killed you. I leaned in close, wordlessly coaxing him to make eye contact. You trust what I'm saying, right? I'm the one who modified his processor and got rid of the bad codes. I'm the one who took a great 6-hour-long look in his head.
This is true.
I massaged one of the shoulders I was still gripping and insisted that was the mind of another Sir. All right? The Gur you know does not hate you. Would he have spent ages working with you otherwise? And what about the way he defended you against Red and Purple's words, right before he severely wounded them? And how he teared up over your screams for the other invaders to kill you themselves? And of course, I clearly heard him say to you exactly, I love you, not I hate you. Where is little Gur, by the way?
He is in the food cruiser. I told him to wait. I didn't want him to hear us talk about this.
See? You know how he really feels about you. Zim willingly met my eyes finally.
And you to me?
I tilted my head. Pardon?
I do see that you care, but I'm not used to... Scooch has always been the only Urkin who is content with my existence. Nobody else, and especially not the tallest. Everyone hated me, and they got a kick out of hating me.
With his head still low, Zim miserably glanced at the window.
But since the evil has been sucked out of their packs, now they hate me in such a serious, much more distant way. But I can't blame them anymore, because now I'm one of them.
Zim...
I don't even know why did I come to you? I didn't have a plan. I don't know what I want or what I'm asking for.
Zim... I pulled my little soldier back in to embrace him once more. His head this time pressed against my chest, bringing back the memory of when I first met him personally, when I helped him fix Gur, but his arms hung limp. I couldn't believe we were supposed to fight back these instincts all this time. They felt right. Just having the peace of mind that I could give Zim the comfort he needed comforted me myself. I even began to stroke his head, like a pet, like a child. This was new. It took me a moment to acknowledge I was doing it because I cared too little. It didn't matter to me how unusual my actions were. My biggest concern at that moment was my little soldier. The antenna I repeatedly ran my hand over twitched reflexively at first, then got used to my touch. My other hand was where it was before, between Zim's shoulders. Just like before, instead of uncomfortably moving away, he leaned against me all the way. And I was sure I saw and felt him nuzzle into me, ever so lightly. His response to my affection was a blow to my heart. It nearly broke me on the spot. I cradled him as tenderly as how I spoke. Hey. You wanted my company. You just wanted my company and support.
But it's foolish for me to think you can just stop everything. for one stupid Urkin whining about his own goddamn self.
Zim said in bitter shame. I wasn't doing anything, Zim. There was nothing to stop. Your timing was appropriate, don't worry. But please understand, my responsibilities as a leader are not only about governing the Urkin Empire. Zim said nothing to this. Even if it's for no particular reason, you are welcome to pay me visits just like this one. I assured. I will talk to you, I will hold you, either one or both. And I won't hate any second of it. Zim remained quiet still. He was listening, accepting what I was telling him, and relishing my hold. I emphasized my next words. You matter. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise, no matter how reasonable their hatred seems. I need everyone to make it a habit, an instinct to forgive, and if they are bent on continuing to have an issue with you, they are going to have an issue with me. Zim's eyes were big with guilt and sincerity when he looked up at me.
How do you, of all Urkins, how do you not hate me after what I did to you? Syss, look at you. I ruined you, and I had your sir killed. Because I created that Florpus trying to force force red and purple to pay attention to me. Because I was desperate and needy. Like right now.
Oh, Zim.
Why don't you crave revenge after what I put you through? All because of something so stupid.
It was a good question. A question that took me a moment to answer. I knew what I wanted to say. I knew what I felt. But to put it in a way others would understand was a challenge. As I spoke, though, I figured it out. Halfway through my answer, I stroked Zim's head again. Your actions were only 10% responsible for the Florpus. Red and purple ignoring you was what led you to make the rash decision to teleport to your planet. Red and purple, as well as the rest of us, were naturally careless and vain. Marbog made that natural for us by completely changing our society. Marbog changed our society to stand up to the many things that threatened to wipe us off the face of the universe. A colossal chain of events led to what happened to me in Eros. Not just you. And I'm also to blame. I made the reckless decision to fly into the Florpus. I put myself and Eros in danger. I drew in a shaky breath. Thinking of Eros was one of my worst weaknesses at this time. Every thought and reminder of my little Sir unit only aggravated the feeling in me that Zim described as poisonous. I endured it. I swallowed, now battling with my own emotions. They needed to wait their turn. Zim was first. My little soldier seemed to pick up on my struggling. He looked as though he wanted to turn the tables and inquire about my well-being next. I did not want it to come to that. In order for me to keep the emotionally damaged afloat, I had to forbid myself from sinking with them. I had to be the strong one, so I could help the other. So I could help all of my people, and be a leader. I had to remain calm. Sensing the growing concern from Zim I didn't want, I continued. Regardless, forgiveness is not an easy thing to give or explain, Zim. But it's easier for everyone, even the forgiver. Holding grudges and plotting revenge, it's all a chore. It corrupts your soul and holds you back. You'll find in most cases that forgiving, accepting what happened, and moving on not only is better, but feels better. Maybe not happier, still better as in pure. And bigger in a way. And you can feel it. Frankly, exacting revenge upon you would be foolish anyway. You didn't know me yet, first of all. And you were doing everything Urkinly possible to prove yourself to our almighty tallest, just like any other invader would. You're also a defective, and a victim of pain and neglect yourself. As seriously as I could, I looked Zim in the eyes. I forgive you, Zim. Your history is not going to stop me from that. And you shouldn't let your history, anything or anyone else stop you from enjoying life. The next time you have even the slightest thought about keeping your pack off or jumping into a poisonous river, snap out of it as quickly as you can. Fight it, and see me if possible. More protectively, I held Zim even tighter, with his face hidden from me again. That's an order. Do you understand me, Zim? Please live as long as you can. Please. Zim's antennae sank down. Once again, I unconsciously ran my hand over one of them.
My tallest.
Many Urkins were struggling to give up the mistake of calling me their tallest. I almost couldn't keep up with correcting them every single time. Something held me back this time, however. I sensed that Zim was having some sort of moment. A moment he needed.
My tallest wishes me the opposite of death. Finally.
I was relieved to find that I had chosen the right words, and that I was making great progress. But I could not send Zim on his way yet. I had more to say. I wanted him to leave with something beautiful to think about. I guided him over to the window. Come over here. As I coaxed him to walk, Zim wiped something from his face with the back of his hand, presumably a tear he didn't want me to see. He looked up where I then told him to. Look out there again. Zim stared out the window with me. What do you see? I asked him.
The sky,
he said, and its brilliant stars. But even though that's all you see, that's not all there is. Slowly, I pointed above us. Zim seemed perplexed.
My Empress?
We have no idea what places are in this very direction alone. I said, what people? What's happening? I'm pointing to 1,000,000 stories, Zim. Private lives full of happiness and misery. I shifted my arm, pointing to another random direction. Now I'm pointing to 1,000,000 more. There is an unthinkable number of things between my finger and the edge of the universe. There's bound to be, at the very, very least, one creature suffering the same way as us. I pointed to yet another spot in the sky. Once again, 1,000,000 more. Could you guess what's going on at this very second? Someone was just killed. Someone was just born, and maybe we'll meet them one day. Someone is struggling to cope with something. Over life. Over a loss. It looks blank where we stand, but we are absolutely clueless. I lowered my arm and, as usual, kept my stare locked on the stars, the empty but lively space that was our cruel and beautiful universe. As you can see, I obsessively concern myself over what I should be acknowledging and caring for. If I wasn't oblivious to a poor creature on the brink of death where I was looking right now, I would drop everything. If a creature was suffering in the way you had, or I had, I would do everything in my power to intervene. A moment of silence. It was then I realized just how quiet Zim had become since the downgrade. We always look where we can't see or know, I said, and Zim, I don't want to be obliviously looking your way while you're in such a state. I don't want to accidentally look where you're just killing yourself. More importantly, I don't want to accidentally have my back turned to it.
I understand,
Zim said.
But what about the tallest?
I looked at him. What? Zim stared at me curiously as he explained.
You hated the tallest and even said they were better off dead. Did you mean that? If you care about me of all Urkins and you say you care about who's on the brink of death and suffering, and you would intervene, why didn't you stop me?
Another good question. Another question that took time to answer. Eventually, I shook my head and sighed. No, I didn't mean it. I hated what they did, what they said, but I didn't hate them. Not truly.
So what were you thinking when you watched me kill them?
Nothing, actually. It was very strange. Zim looked down. He glared sadly.
I shouldn't have blown them up.
I blinked at him in awe. So you do regret it?
Yes, I regret it immensely, and have since right after it happened.
Zim said, without hesitation, unafraid to let it be known.
Red and Purple would have transformed into fine Urkins, I'm sure. They should be here for this. Life still isn't perfect, and never will be, but it's heavenly compared to before. They would have become better like the rest of us. I know it took getting rid of them to have you change all of this, but I can't tell myself that getting rid of them was the right thing to do.
I was amazed. Zim did not need to exercise forgiveness. Red and Purple had done him more wrong than anyone else I could remember, and he trusted that he would have had a positive future with them if they weren't gone. Of course it wasn't, I said softly, but for what it's worth, we don't know for sure if they would have cooperated with this change or joined the rogues instead. For all we know, they were too far gone, too warped into the idea that they were above everyone, and that they could do whatever they wanted to whatever they wanted, and to whoever they wanted. Come to think of it, they became worse throughout the years. Did you notice? Zim did not reply. They were different before they ruled, I said. They were more civil. In the academy, I couldn't imagine them throwing a Smeet in a dungeon or trying to have some of us killed just for being their least favorites. And that look they gave me when I almost shuddered. It haunts me. It was way too cold, even for us. I had saved them. I was in the worst pain I've ever felt in my life, if my memory serves me right. And they stared at me. Like that.
I think I know what look you're talking about.
Zim muttered. I sighed. Just don't let it get to you, Zim. What you did to them, alright? They weren't better than you. They may have been your first deliberate kill on us, but they were deliberately killing us before you. And in most of those cases, not for justified reasons. And unlike you, Red and Purple had no regrets. Think about that the next time you believe you really were the worst.
Miyuki and Spork, though.
Zim.
I hope I don't get another leader killed. I hope you won't be next.
Zim worriedly stared into space.
I especially hope you won't be next.
Don't start blaming yourself for things you haven't even done yet now, I rebuked. Don't dwell on the past and future both. I'm alive.
I already ruined your pack.
We just went through this, you fool. I pulled my little soldier in for another hug. A shorter one. I'm alive now. I'm here now. Zim hugged me back this time. He looked up at me. He was only 2 years younger than me, but he was almost like a child with those large eyes, especially now that they were friendlier, without a brainwashed pack.
My Empress?
Yes?
You say we don't know what's going on through the stars. Way out there. But it's possible to not know what's going on right next to you as well. I tire of it being all about me. You still have the poisonous feeling too, right?
There was the question I was trying to avoid. I almost cringed. I looked back to the sky. Perhaps, but I don't usually speak up to cope with my own problems. I just muse. I look at the stars and I think. The stars always help me. Zim tilted his head.
Do you like stars a lot?
I do. There's always been something about them that I admire so very much. An old comrade used to say I was a weirdo and a creep for staring up at them all the time. It's a habit. Ever since I first emerged from Earth's surface, I've often lost myself in the sight of the stars. The both of us gazed upon the twinkling flecks in silence. Another few peaceful minutes later, the elevator chimed again. I wheeled around, preparing to scold who I was sure was going to be one of the navigators for not waiting for me to say it was alright to come back in, which it was, granted. But it was Gur. His cyan eyes lit up when they found us, and he joyfully made his way over.
What are you doing, Gur?
Zim asked calmly.
I told you to wait.
What are you doing?
Gur returned, cheerfully diving into his chosen spot next to his master. He locked his claws together.
Were you gonna kiss?
No! Zim and I unintentionally cried out together. Incredulously, awkwardly, the two of us looked at Gur, then at each other. The absurdity of Gur's unexpected accusation and our reaction to it caused me to chuckle. I hadn't laughed in so long. I hadn't felt the tickle from it or heard it come out of me, not since before my encounter with the Florpus. Before our encounter with the Florpus, I found myself staring at Gur, who was now singing to a scowling Zim, as my laughter slowly faded and my smile morphed into a slight grimace. Gur really did look so much like Eros. A happy little Eros. It made me wonder what Eros would have been like without the strict coding. Would he have remained mostly the same, or would he have been Gur's new playmate of some sort? Probably both, I imagined. Just like what Zim said about red and purple, I wished my little sir was here to see what he was missing. I thanked the stars that Zim, level-headed until next time, concluded his visit shortly after Gur came to steal him back. I needed to be alone. I stared at the stars again. This time, I got to watch them sparkle and dance through my sobbing vision.